Hey guys, and today I'm going to be doing a guide of how to play Direful Dolls. Now before I go into the guide itself, I'm just going to do a quick deck profile. It's a bit updated now, unlike the previous one. So we'll just quickly go through the deck and then we'll start going into the kind of tips and tricks to play Direful Dolls. So first of all, we'll go with the ride line. So we've got the Androld, the grade 2, the grade 1, and the grade 0. We do obviously have the 3 Androlds for the Sparda, the 1 Evergreen. Now we also now have the 3 Laminers. Let's manage to get the 3 Laminers, 3 Griselda, our 4 Providenza. We have the 3 PGs and 1 Sanctitude. We've got the 4 Sparda, 4 Pelagia, 2 Serenella, 2 of the cats, 1 Dark Six OT as well still, 3 draws, 8 crits, 4 remaining Direful Dolls, with 4 hills. So that pretty much sums up the list I'll be going over the guide over. This is my current list. I don't think I'll be changing until set 2. Now let's actually jump over to CFA and kind of show you how to properly pile up the deck. Alrighty guys, so let's go over the 3 most important Direful Dolls in the deck. So starting off with the grade 1, we do have the Direful Doll Pelagia. So this card is very important as it allows us to recycle 2 cards from our drop into the soul, which is very important, but it also binds itself at the end of the battle. This card also really helps in doing some attack formations, as it allows us to put cards in the soul for a grade 2 Providenza, which we'll go into soon, so that we have proper targets to call out from Providenza. It's also second ability continuously Guardian Circle, gives an extra 5k shield, so when it's in the bind zone, it's 15k shield, which is very good, because that essentially means that we're running more bigger shields in our deck overall. So she's a very important grade 1 in the deck. Next we'll go over the Providenza. So Providenza is very important in this deck, as that this is essentially a pressure tool, as it is the only multi-attacker in the deck itself. Now the good thing about this card as well is that it also helps us accelerate the bind zone, as if we use Providenza to call something else out that also puts itself in the bind zone and then the multiple attacks, essentially gives us 2 extra tools to guard with, which is really good. And also, getting the 10k is also very good when the opponent's on grade 3, as it means we have strong standalone attackers. Especially on Persona rides, it hits absolutely crazy numbers. So yeah, the grade 2 it's just an amazing pressure tool in the deck overall. You definitely want to at least see 1 if you can in the game, but if you see 2 and you can constantly do 5 attacks, it is absolutely devastating. Then lastly, we do have the the Liberata, sorry. So this card is really strong. It allows us to put Direful Dolls in the drop in of the soul on Reguard Circle and Guardian Circle, which is very important. This essentially helps us constantly always have resources if we're using Liberata correctly. But then its second skill, giving itself 10k regardless of the grade the opponent is on, is really strong, because that means it's going to be a 23k attacker, but also with the added effect of by counterblast one to draw a card. Now that draw does come up sometimes depending on the situations that you're in. So overall, these 3 cards here is essentially what helps the deck flow, provide pressure, and always have a strong kind of grind game. Okay, so that is the 3 most important Direful Dolls of the deck. Okay, so let's just say this is our hand once we have mulligan and drawn for turn. So in this hand, what we want to do is essentially we want to be discarding cards in our hand that synergize with Pelagia's first skill, so that we aren't wasting any resources overall. So let's say right up to grade 1, so we discard a Providenza to ride into the grade 1. Now we get the crest, and then we would pass it to the opponent. We then take the damage, then go right up draw. We would then discard Liberata, write it to the grade 2. Use the grade 1 effect, 7. Our 2 dolls, so this is absolutely crap. Shuffle. Then what we do is we call the Pelagia behind our Griselda. We enter battle, swing, with a drive check. Then in the battle we will bind the Pelagia and then chuck both our dolls from the drop to soul. So essentially what we've done is our discards of the live deck have essentially become free because those that have turned into resources that we will be using for Androld. But not only that, we also now have the Pelagia set up, so we get the Androld, so we have a free 15k shield from the start. Let's just say this is our opening hand now. This is a completely new hand, and we've done a mulligan and we've drawn for turn. So what we do here is we would still aim to use Pelagia to source potential, but in this scenario we actually get a draw out of it because of the Lamina in our hand. Because again, Lamina will Soul Blast out a card from our soul, which of course would be a Direful Doll. So we essentially get that extra draw, which is really good. We also get that 50k shield you can use for Androld, and then yeah, we've got the 2 targets for Pelagia, which is really great. So discard, right into the one. We get the crest. We then Soul Blast for the Lamina. Put it to the bottom. Draw one. We're gonna end our turn. Take damage. Then draw a turn. Discard the Providenza. Right into the grade 2. Use a grade 1, top 7. Pretty nice. So we've got 2 targets. Now, in this scenario, because you have a Sparda in hand, depending on what the matchup is in, since you'll be in grade 2, you may know what the opponent's potentially playing. You could either go for a trigger, so then you have Sparda active when you get to, well, when your opponent gets to grade 3, or you can just go for them. Just go for aggression on the Mortis Providenza. We'll just say for this scenario, you know, we're not playing a deck that's, you know, really crazy with aggro. So we're just going to go for the Providenza and the Liberata. So just on the soul. Then yeah, we call out our Pelagia behind the Vanguard, and then we swing. Do a drive check, then bind, then put those 2 dolls in the soul. So again, we fully utilize the Pelagia. We got a draw from the Lamina, and we've got that 15k shield for Androld. So overall, just really good. Okay, so now this time let's go just for like a completely random hand. This is my hand after my mulligan that I've drawn for turn. So assessing our hand, we have to look at what's kind of like the most important in this deck. So first of all, the first important key piece right here is a Providenza. So which means we want to keep Providenza in our hand because we can sucker on the soul with our grade 2. So this is a card we don't want to discard. Looking at Androld. Androld is, you know, it's a persona attacker that we want to have. So we essentially want to keep this in our hand as well. But it also comes down to a couple other factors too. Because of capital triggers and our grade 1. This is our after we draw for turn. Okay, so if we're going second, for example, we need to mitigate the amount of damage that we're taking, because we are a deck that's a lot slower, and we kind of want to grind the game out into a position that where we can win. That means we need to be very careful of also that discards in the early stages of the games too, especially when you don't open, you know, an ideal hand having, you know, the Laminas with the purple grade 1, or, you know, open a purple grade 1 and opening a Providenza and Liberata. So we'll just go with this hand, for example. So right here, the Rally is an easy discard. It's again because obviously for the first couple turns, Rally isn't really going to get that full effect. So we'll discard the Rally, throw it to the grade 1. And we'll just say we're going first. We don't get any energy. Adam's cut up that first part. Okay, then we pass the turn. They go to their turn, they do their thing, and we'll hit the damage. Okay, so go best of ours, so we stand and draw. Again, we seem to keep getting a rally, so we would discard the rally again, right into the grade 2. And we activate the skill of our grade 1, so top 7. Alrighty, so we have a Liberata, which is good, and we also have a Serenella and Griselda. Now, overall utility wise, I feel like Griselda, especially if we have in our hand, is going to be more ideal because we essentially need to draw into more pieces. We need to draw into the purple grade 1, we need to draw into another Liberata if we can, we need to draw more of our multi-attacker. So we would take the Griselda over the Serenella. So we'll go to the soul. Then we just swing, grab check, another Griselda, okay, it's alright. We pass the turn. Just let me take another damage. Fortunate is the Pelagia, so this is great. And let's just say they're going for another attack here. We'd probably, these are both obviously Direful Dolls, but if we just say we had a Direful Doll and a non-Direful Doll trigger, we would guard with the Direful Doll trigger, so then we could use like Liberata to put in the soul, and if we somehow draw a Sparda, or we know we get a Sparda later on, we have a Direful Doll trigger set up for Sparda. So we just guard with the Direful Doll here, then we'd stand and draw. Okay, so we get a Pelagia, which is really good. So at this point here, I would discard a Griselda, because essentially we would chuck the Providenza in the soul. So get rid of the Griselda, run into the Androld, edit the second the grade 2, so we call it out. We use the skill of Griselda to chuck the Providenza in the soul. So putting Providenza in the soul with Griselda's skill is good, because essentially we want to be calling out Providenza anyway. So it's kind of like a +1 for us in a sense. So we draw that one card, get the 5k with Griselda and Androld, and look at that, we somehow draw the Sparda. So that now means when we call out our Liberata, when we use our Providenza, we can actually get a Direful Doll into the soul, so then the next turn we can actually use Sparda. So again, Direful Dolls, they use the Bind Zone as an extra resource to guard. But you need to make sure that you're using that Bind Zone properly, so that you always have your resources flowing. So we're going to go over a couple of scenarios here and there, because these are some scenarios that do come up, and you need to make sure that you're doing these steps properly, so you have the game flowing. Okay, so let's just say, for example, this is our Bind Zone. So one Liberata, one Providenza, and one Pelagia. Then in our soul we've got a couple of Direful Dolls. Unfortunately, they're multi-attackers, or Liberata or anything like that. So, this is our hand as well. As you can see, our hand isn't too great. We need to ensure that we can still get a multi-attack. If not this turn, next turn. So what we do here is to fully utilize the Bind Zone and to get the maximum, to get pretty much your maximum output out of this. The best way to do this is you'd need to use Liberata to put the Pelagia in the soul. So then for next turn, the next turn over, you have a Providenza to actually do the multi-attacks. So it does happen in some scenarios where you pretty much only open one of each. And yes, the Providenza does seem tempting, just to call out like a Providenza, to call out like something from your souls, for example, maybe like a grade 2. That's all fine and all, but once you do that, Providenza is the only card in your Bind Zone, and you literally have no way of keeping the game flowing. So I'll show you for example. So let's just say we go with Providenza first, for example, that goes with the drop. We then use the Liberata to put the Providenza to drop into the soul. And then we go up with the Providenza. It's our turn, your Woodwolf's turn. We won't worry about the Sun Arrive. Sorry, should have Counterblast, just an example, sorry. So we use Androld. So we call that 1, 2, and 3. So we chuck a Direful Doll on the soul, so just say we chuck a third. Just here, for example, just for now. Just to give both the Vanguard and the Ring Up +5. Alright. This will be 13k by itself, so it's fine. It's all, as soon as I click it. Do Androld, do a triple drive. Right, so we swing, pound, and then we swing a Pelagia. She gets pound. Then we get the 2 Direful Dolls, from a drop, and put into the soul. So now we have those 2 Direful Dolls the next turn. Now let's see if we do it the other way around. Alright, so go back to that game set again. There's 3 cards in the bind zone. But this time we're going to use Liberata to put Providenza on the soul. Now, watch what happens when we use Liberata to put Providenza in the soul. Again, the draft is still be the same, but you'll see there's a bit of a difference. So we go with Providenza, use the Sparda, put Providenza on the soul, and then use the Pelagia. Now go to our turn, draw for turn, and then we use the Androld to call out the Providenza, Serenella, and the Griselda. Use Griselda, so put the hill back on the soul and draw one. We stick a Providenza, Energy Blast 3, bind, call and cover out of the soul. So we'd call probably the Griselda at this point. Make the thing a beefier. This is an example for now, obviously I'm going to do this, but Love Scream might be better at this point, but so this is an example, it doesn't really fucking matter which one we call out. I'm just showing you the example, what happens. Then drop check. Yes. No more really hooked here. I swing with these, okay, and then we'll be in our turn. So, next turn. Sure, we have 2 cards to go with our bind zone, but we literally have no way of drawing multi-attacks whatsoever, which means we're a free attack deck until we draw a Providenza for RNG, and that's unfortunately the incorrect way to play the deck. Sometimes you do have to go for a free attack deck, but then you are guaranteed a multi-attack next turn. If you draw a Providenza as well next turn from RNG, so even there's 4 attacks, you'll now have 5 attacks. So that's the reason why you always use Pelagia over the Providenza with Liberata's skill if you only have 1 of each in your bind zone and you have no others in your soul, hand, or field. Okay, so let's go over a scenario where you've not opened any Pelagias, but you've opened 2 Liberatas and Providenza. Now, the game plan is to get Providenza and Liberata into the soul. It should be pretty easy to figure out what you need to do, but for those who do not know, the idea is you want to double Liberata, Providenza, sorry, then use Liberata to chuck the Providenza into the soul. And then use the last Liberata to chuck the Liberata into the soul. So we'll call it Providenza, the Serenella, and then a Griselda. Again, at this point we're just showing what they can do. So, I drew a Pelagia. I want you to pretend that the Pelagia is in here to actually show how we'd be playing the deck out. Okay, so we go to battle. Let's get +5 as well for I forget. So you swing the Providenza. You'd Energy Blast 3 into the bind zone. You'd call out the Liberata. The Liberata would chuck a Liberata into the soul. So now you have a Liberata set up for next turn. Then you swing your Vanguard, triple drive. Right, then you swing with your Griselda, being the smaller one. So then, if it gets a trigger, it's fine. This will be hitting for a very big number. Then you swing with Liberata. I think it's 5 more booster. And then you find the Liberata. So now, you still have, you have this one as well in the bind. So you have 3 cards used in the bind zone now, which is great. Again, you'd be doing the same thing again. You'd go to Providenza first, and then use the Liberata to put the Providenza in the soul. So then you have the game constantly flowing. By doing that now, you again have a Liberata still to call out for Providenza. When you call that Liberata out, Liberata will be putting again another Liberata in the soul. So you constantly have that 4 attacks going every single turn. That's essentially what you want to do if you open 2 Liberatas and 1 Providenza. Okay, so let's just say in this scenario, we don't open any Liberatas whatsoever from our green one, but instead we get a Pelagia and a Providenza. In our hand, we have a Pelagia and just a red of Direful Doll. The idea with this hand, or overall, is we're aiming to recycle our resources, so we continue to reuse Providenza, as again we want to get multi-attacks. So what we do here is we use Androld skill. We call out the Pelagia, the Providenza, and then the Serenella. So we get a triple drive, because we'll just say the opponent is on grade 3. What we then do is we'd swing a Pelagia, this is by Providenza. The Pelagia would bind itself, doing any Direful Dolls, but if we didn't have Direful Dolls, which I think we have 2 Direful Dolls on the soul, then we'd use the skill of Providenza to chuck them into the bind to call out a Griselda. We'd use the Griselda effect to chuck a Griselda into our soul, giving both itself and Androld +5. Then we would swing with the Androld, doing a triple drive, the first crit, so just go power here, get the crit to the Vanguard, second, and third. We then swing with the smallest one, especially if the opponent did not hit a trigger, and then we swing with the Griselda. So then passing the turn over. This also goes to the bind, sorry, before I forget. Alright, so we essentially do, we go with Providenza first, then we go with Pelagia second. And after that, we take some damage. And we'll say we got this one as well, just to grab that one for namesake. And we'll just, get rid of our DK shot. Now let's just say in the scenario we don't open the Providenza. What we do next turn is we draw for turn. We'd then use Androld skill to call out 2 cards. So we'd call out the Griselda and the Tonya. Obviously, if we have cards on drop at the time with Pelagia, we'd obviously call out 3. But let's just have this namesake, only have 2. What we then do is we call out the Pelagia. We put it on the Vanguard, because it doesn't really matter where we put the Pelagia at this stage, as we aren't getting multi-attacks off anyway. So what we do is we have Androld, we do our drive checks, so 2 drives, we get the power, we get the rest of the Vanguard and get power on this side, get rid of that 5. Okay, yeah. We then use the Pelagia to bind itself to chuck the Pelagia and the Providenza into the soul. So that means for next turn we can actually do 4 attacks because we now have the Provenza back in the soul again, as well as a Pelagia. So let's just say you have a Pelagia and the Provenza in the soul, as you haven't managed to get the Provenza, the Liberata. Let's just say you've drawn the Liberata down. Again, it's going to essentially be the same as the very first scenario, where you're going to have to be doing 3 attacks this turn, but then for next turn, you get your 4 attacks off. Essentially what you do in this scenario, so again, you would go up with your Provenza as well as your Pelagia. It would take a couple of damage. You would go up with 1, for example, and you draw for turn. So again, what you do is you'd call the Liberata first, use the Liberata effect to chuck the Pelagia into the soul. Then next use Androld skill to call out Pelagia, Serenella, and Griselda. Again, this gives Griselda again, obviously, just to give the Vanguard and Griselda power. No, you don't need your Vanguard to have like a top up of 5k, just so your Vanguard's kind of scary. But anyway, and then back to here. So what we do in this scenario, we swing the Android first. So do our draw checks first. Ooh, crit, that's pretty good. Power here. Right, so then we swing with this one here. So this would be 31. You then find Counterblast 1 and draw 1. So you can kind of draw into like another key piece. And then use Pelagia to bind the chuck Provenza. And honestly, we'd go for another Griselda into the soul. And so this column is pushing for 38. And then we bind that as well. So then for next turn, we have the Provenza. Essentially what we do here is we go with our Pelagia. Hopefully we take a damage here, but obviously we take damage, we'd call the Liberata out first. Chuck the Pelagia in the soul. And then we'd use that, and maybe just put down like 5k. So what we do for next turn essentially is we draw. We'll just put something right here. We'd use our Androld. So we'd call out the Pelagia, the Provenza, and then Serenella. But we'd probably put the Serenella, over here. So now we're using with this, we can put the Liberata in the soul. So like so, swing. We always bind a Pelagia first, especially if we don't have a Liberata in the soul, so we're getting the maximum amount of our attacks. So we chuck these two on the soul. Use last 3, bind. Pull the Liberata out, and then Liberata will get the other Direful Doll, so we'll go that one. So we have Androld first, second, third. That's very nutty because we have a couple Direful Dolls also for next turn to bind with our Spardas. So Sparda's going to generate us some very, very big shield. We then swing a Liberata. Let's look at this column. Pass the turn. So again, we have this set up. So essentially what we do, the same as last time, we would guard with the Pelagia, then use the Liberata for the Pelagia and the soul. So then for next turn, turn after, we have our 4 attacks. Thankfully, we did manage to draw into a Providenza, so we had the 4 attacks for next turn. But with our Pelagia, what essentially happens then is if you have another Pelagia, which we did, you essentially try and get 5 more attacks off the turn after. So that's essentially what you do if you got a Pelagia and a Providenza in the bind zone, but then you have a Liberata in your hand. Okay, so I've been going over Griselda a little bit, through each scenario, talking about it, always giving the Vanguard and the Reguard power. So the reason why I do this is because, first of all, Griselda essentially makes the Vanguard a bit more annoying, because Androld will always be swinging for 18 then. So 18 essentially means it's a front for 2 to pass. Or Persona Ride, a front's 1 to pass. So if the opponent does not want the attack to hit through, if they put down a front on a 5k, that's still 2 to pass. If they put down a front on a 10k, it's no pass. But the idea is that it's making these annoying numbers where the opponent pretty much has to put more down if they want to guarantee that, I can't 2 to pass. Another great thing about Griselda is it puts stuff from our hand into Soul. So, in a scenario, I call it Griselda, but I want to use Sparda. So what we do here is we put the Bethany into Soul to draw 1, to get both the Griselda and the Androld plus 5k. Then we call out the Sparda, sorry, behind the Vanguard, sorry. Then bind it to get plus 10k. Now what's great about this is essentially the Griselda essentially made our draw free, because our Sparda essentially says we +1 to give it 10k. So Sparda has a lot of Griselda has a lot of utility in that sense, where sometimes we can chuck cards on the Soul for certain scenarios to make our other pieces run more smoothly. So another great example with Griselda is there will be games where we open a Griselda but we only have 2 Direful Dolls. By using Griselda to put a card from our hand to the Soul, we now have the 3 Direful Dolls to give our Androld triple drive. So that's why even in set 2, for example, Griselda is still played, because there are scenarios where having Griselda actually helps the flow of the game, benefit the game much more. Again, with our Sparda, giving our Vanguard power, but then also sometimes making sure we hit that 3 Direful Doll threshold so we can give Android triple drive. So that's why Griselda is honestly, I'd say maybe the 4th important piece. I wouldn't say it's as important as the other 3, but this card is more significant. Now, going over the least significant card on the deck is the Serenella. Now, yes, the Serenella does generate magic numbers. It can swing, with the Griselda for 28, which is nice. It also is a 13k attacker, but the biggest problem with Serenella, unfortunately, is that aside from binding itself and essentially giving itself 5k, it does not offer any other great utility. And it's because of that, with set 2, Serenella is the first one to be replaced. Now, if we get some even better support, there is a chance that Griselda would get cut, but it'd have to be a card that's so good that Griselda gets cut. So that's essentially why Griselda is definitely still an important card, and why Serenella unfortunately doesn't really cut it. Now, going over to Sparda. So the reason why we have the Sparda with the 4 copies is because Sparda is essentially our way of generating extra shield. Because again, we can use the bind zone to call out Chancellor Garden Circle with Androld skill. So if we have Sparda to be able to bind triggers from our Soul, we get much more fat shield. But also Sparda is also a 10k attacker or booster, so it's also a very strong standalone attacker, and as I said, it has far more utility than it does with Serenella. So that's why with Sparda, for example, Sparda probably won't leave the deck, and most likely it would probably maybe go down to 3 copies maybe in the future. But yes, that's essentially the reasoning behind why these cards are also in the deck too, and the purpose that they serve. And again, just unfortunately, Serenella, not having the most utility, unfortunately. Alrighty guys, so let's now talk about cyclers. So honestly, in regards to both some kind of Discard and Lamina, both of them are actually both good options. It just depends on what you prefer more. So let's kind of break down what they both add to the deck. So first of all, going with Lamina. So Lamina essentially, as we've spoken in a couple of the previous segments, Lamina essentially is good in the early game. It allows you to put, recycle, put your dolls on drop, especially if you do open your Pelagia. It essentially replaces itself and lets you draw cards, which is really good. And it doesn't use the energy. So again, if you go second, you have the potential of doing 5 attacks if you open up 2 Providences when you hit grade 3, because you'll be able to do 2 when you hit grade 3 first, and then 2 on your Persona Ride turn, or you could just do 4 attacks on your first grade 3 turn, and then do 5 attacks on 2 Persona Ride turns. So that's essentially what she brings to the deck in regards to what she can essentially do. Now going over to Tizcar. So obviously Tizcar is does use energy, but it's a lot more flexible. So for example, sometimes you won't always open up 2 Providences. Sometimes you might just want to go for a staple 4 attacks. In that scenario, you do have Tizcar as an extra way of drawing cards, but also a way of in some scenarios where you don't actually want to get rid of your soul because of the way your soul is set up. She uses energy, so she doesn't touch your soul whatsoever. Because there are some scenarios where if you do use Lamina over quite a few times and you don't open your Pelagia, sometimes you do run out of soul very quickly with Androld, and you won't always be able to use his effect to call 3 dolls out to get triple drive. Especially also with what you open your dolls. Sometimes you might not find your Pelagias. You might not always find your the grade 3s in multiple copies. So that scenario actually feels kind of bad when that happens. So that's why Tizcar is also pretty handy in that scenario too. So honestly, either cycler is okay. They both have their ups and downs. Alrighty, now let's talk about your 2 order options. So you have the Evergreen Transfee and then the Guardian Scrodal. So let's break it down of what each one does. And again, with both of these Regalis pieces, they're both good options. It honestly doesn't matter which one you choose. It comes down to personal preference. So Evergreen Transfee gives you a bit more of a defensive option, especially when if you go in second and you get rushed really hard. Evergreen Transfee can kind of help with that big skill that you need to maybe kind of stabilize in the game. There has been a few games where I've used the Transfee, it's helped me stabilize because I haven't had to use much of my hand when the opponent's been using big attacks. So that's why you're definitely an overall very good Regalis piece. And then with the Guardian Scrodal, this card also really good too because it allows you to essentially get consistent Persona Rides, just providing a lot of pressure. Now obviously providing a lot of pressure could also potentially mean that the opponents on the crackback, they might not be as strong. And again, obviously being able to consistent Persona Ride too is also very, very, very handy because it also gives us the option to kind of close out the game faster than us having to grind out the game to where we eventually win because we out-resource the opponent. So again, both Regalis pieces are really good. You can just essentially choose which one feels great for you. But just kind of want to break down, let you know kind of like what benefit you're getting from running either of these Regalis pieces. Alrighty, and then lastly let's go over your optional triggers. So you can even run fronts and draws, both are perfectly fine, but let's break down what each trigger provides to the deck. So with the Rouse Wild Master Riley, she essentially helps us draw into pieces, and also on the defensive turn, being able to get a defensive draw kind of equips our hand, makes it bigger, especially in the early stages of the game, especially if we go in second, where we're getting hit a lot. Being able to kind of recover a little bit is very handy. Also, it is a tanky shield, so most of the time just being able to guard with a doll from our bind zone and then using her on top, sometimes just enough, so you can kind of keep your bigger 15k shields in hand. But yeah, so overall, she does have some good application, you know, drawing your key pieces, really good on your damage checks if you hit them as well, and obviously really strong your drive checks as well, being able to make your hand bigger. Now with Natalia, for example, Natalia is also very strong because she's a 20k shield. Again, her combined with, just say for example, your grade 3, most of the time that's enough to go one big attacks, a 25k shield overall. She also does, compared to the draw, have a higher power ceiling, as essentially hitting her, especially at 5 attacks, or even just like 4 attacks for example, it's giving that front row an extra 10k power. It's also really good on non-persona ride turns, so essentially you're getting that persona ride power now, which is really great. But again, on your persona ride turns, it makes absolutely massive numbers. Obviously, she doesn't, you know, help you draw into, you know, your kind of key pieces. But again, the plus side of it is that sometimes when I have to get to those pieces, because you're making you know, numbers so big at the front, especially hit 2 for example, that it can really close down the game. Plus, because Androld has triple drive most of the time, if you don't go to 2 to guard, for example, hitting a front makes it very, very easier on where you need to put your next trigger if you can have a trigger for your triple drive. So pretty much overall, these are, you know, kind of what the triggers bring to Direful Dolls. And again, either one is perfectly fine. It's just up to what you prefer more. Alrighty guys, that's everything covered. Essentially how to play Direful Dolls. If you have any other questions, you know, after watching this video, leave it in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer them. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy it, I'd really appreciate if you guys left a like, you know, and also subscribe. It did take me quite a bit to get this video up and going. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.